Hey y'all,
What's going on, guys?
I'm Jay,
And I'm Chris the Bird Nerd.
and
And
we
we
are
are
the
the
Bird
Bird
Brains.
Brains. No. We'll see if it's good or
Yeah,
not. Let
it's
us
been a
know.
while. It's been a
It
while
has.
since I did one of those. Let's talk about
It's
that.
been a few weeks for us, yeah.
So Chris, you've got four, I've got three kids, and it turns out I've discovered more this summer than any other summer that while summertime is more fun as a kid, it is less fun as a parent because I don't have anywhere to put these children.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm busy with work, busy with the birds, I'm busy with these kids that don't have anywhere to
Yeah.
go for 7 hours a day. And so
Uh-huh.
something's had to give. And unfortunately, that's been the podcast.
Ours, my kids are getting older, and so three of the four are home for summer from school, right? And summers are absolutely insane in our household. We have all of our birthdays, my wife and I's included, are all summer birthdays, our anniversaries in the summer.
Well,
We
that one's
try,
your fault.
yeah, I know, right? We try to do a few family trips. We have like reunions. We both have really big families and they live close by. And so it's honestly, it's like every weekend there's something. Those last 2 weeks, I've been away more than I've been home, and then in about 3 days, heading back out for several days. So it's just,
Yeah,
summers are crazy.
every time I text you, you're like, yeah, we're going camping or we're going shed hunting or something. Every time I text you, I'm like, hey, can you podcast this week? And you're like, I don't know.
uh,
Or vice versa. You'll text me and you're like, can you do this night? And I'm like, I can't do that night. I could maybe do this other
yeah,
night. So it's just, and then on top of that, everything we've already talked about to get bird specific, I've exactly as of this afternoon, I sold some birds this afternoon. I have 123 birds.
oh,
If
nice.
some more haven't hatched today that I didn't get to count, and they're all breeding. So there's a ton of work for that. Like I made
Yeah,
egg food this morning before church, right? Like a
yeah,
whole big batch of it, which I always do that at night, and I just haven't. I like got to today and was like, oh, I'm out of egg food.
yep.
So I had to tell my wife like, hey, sorry, you have to get the kids ready for church because I'm about to be cooking.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. And the funny thing is so yesterday, I same thing. I make a big batch of egg food, which usually lasts me about a day and a half in the summer when I'm breeding. Because if I've got lots of babies, I'm giving them egg food several times a day, right? And then when they're not breeding, it lasts a lot longer. But I make this big old batch, get out there, feeding all the birds. I'm trying to hurry because we're leaving somewhere, right? Because it's Saturday and it's a weekend and it's the holiday weekend, and I left my egg food out there. It's summertime, 100 degrees outside, and I didn't realize it till I get back in the evening time because I'm
Mm.
going to go feed them again. And I'm like, crap, where's my egg food? So it's all bad. Got to toss it all. It's like just, it's frustrating. But yeah, super busy with the birds also. I mean, just breeding like crazy, selling like crazy. I'm actually shipping a couple birds out, a couple borks, Colorado tomorrow.
I'm
You guys,
shipping
when you guys
tomorrow
see
too.
this, it'll be a few days past. But yeah, so just super busy. Babies coming out like crazy. Spoiler alert, I got several star babies that just came out this week and a few others that really excited about. And so hopefully getting some of the good birds going right now with the star finches and Houlihan finches and parrot finches. We've got multiple nest boxes going with all those species. So it's going good right now. Just crazy.
Well, I have star news as well. So the list of birds I'm looking for is getting smaller and smaller. And until recently, that list had three stars on it. Well, now it's down to one star because, well, hopefully.
Nice.
So my buddy Jacob, who's a great listener of the podcast, found some stars out in Texas, and he talked to me about them. So I ended up buying. I gave him the money to buy them for me, and then he's shipping them to me, which he's never shipped before. He's a pretty new finch keeper, so knock on wood. I actually ended up building out a shipping box and sending it to him.
Gotcha.
And we're going to talk some more tomorrow, which when this comes out, hopefully will be actually the day I receive the birds. But hoping I'll need one more male starfinch. So I'm hoping one of those babies you just kicked out is male and then we can make something happen. But
If it's a male, it's all yours, man.
that's awesome. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I've got. what do I have going out tomorrow? I've got a rosy bork male. I've got a shaft tail pair with that fawn baby, or not a baby anymore, just young fawn now, and then a spice finch pair going out tomorrow. And then in the next few weeks, I have a big order going out to Charles Cole.
Nice,
Shout out,
Charles.
listener. Yeah. I'm just waiting. It's kind of funny. I think I've told you about this off camera, Chris. So, and Charles, if you're listening, this is really your fault. So Charles reached out to me. We talked some because he's a listener, and then he said, like, "Hey, I'm wanting to buy these birds." He has a really cool aviary. So he built it like
Yes.
inside, but it's
Uh-huh.
made of the frame is all PVC, which is such a cool way to do it. And I honestly never thought of doing one in PVC. It's a little bit more expensive, but gosh, it's got to be easier to clean.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, and you could do cool. You could do like hook the perches in and stuff. We're going to talk about dream aviary setups on this episode, but so he's got this cool aviary and he's filling it, doing a good job. And so originally he said, "Well, I'll just get a hen Gouldian from you and um, I can't remember. I think some society finches." And then he came back and said, "Well, maybe I better get a pair of Gouldians." And then he came back and said, "Well, let's add this and let's add that," and
It's
which
never
is
enough.
great. Yeah, which is great. And yeah, I cannot talk, right? I get it. So he um he kept adding birds that were younger. And so the when I can ship keeps getting kicked out.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we're getting really close. I've got some Gouldians. I'm waiting for them to show me some colors so I can do some educated guessing on sex,
There you
and
go.
then waiting for some societies to fledge. It'll all work out, but in the next like couple of weeks, I'll finally get to ship him this big order of birds, and it started out as like 3 birds. I think he's going to get like 10. Um, and it's funny because we've been talking, and like, yeah, we always say the addiction is real, right? Like, so he started out with that big aviary, and then last weekend he sent me some pictures. He's built some breeding cages, and I was just laughing. And Jacob's the same way. When he first started talking to me, he had like 4 cages. Now he's up to like 15. I'm just laughing. It's like, that's how it started for me. I had the one flight,
Uh-huh.
and then next thing my bedroom in high school is floor to ceiling with bird cages. We're gonna have to.
When I
We'll
when
have.
I started out, when I was first married,
Mhm,
I legit had a full bedroom with cages. I mean, because
mhm.
I didn't have an area to build an aviary at the time, but I wanted the birds, and like it's never enough. I can never say no, or I'd see one other. I'm like, oh, it's a great deal. I just got to get it. It's cages stacked upon cages in this poor room that which it's a lot of maintenance. I knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't ever go back to that because it's a lot of work. And you try to strategize so that that's easy to clean, but also a good big environment for the birds. But you got to start somewhere, and that's where a lot of us start. And hopefully, and we've talked about it in the past, Jay. We evolve, right? We try to you start, and I there's always a bigger end goal, but I think also there it's important that there's always a better scenario that you can create for your birds. Even now, where we're at now, it's like you've been working on your aviary this last week, and I've been trying to do a few things and touching stuff up to make it better for the birds and give them, different dynamics within the aviary or their cages, and trying to make it a better environment all around. So it's just constantly evolving, bigger, better, never enough. The addiction's real.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about it. So, like in high school, right? So, I built my own bed. So, I had a lofted bed. It was actually an awesome setup. So, I had a lofted bed in my room, and then underneath, I had a couch. And I originally had like an end table built into the bed that was next to the couch. And
Yeah.
my room got so full of cages. I mean, I got rid of a dresser. Like, I was like, I'll just stuff more clothes in these drawers so I have more room. But eventually, I took that end table, built a frame above it, and that was a bird cage too. But it worked
Yeah.
out that when I woke up on like a Saturday morning as a teenager, didn't have anything to do if I wasn't going to work, I could just lay there in my bed for an hour or two and watch the birds.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And like, I really can't figure out. I guess I just took less. It's hard for me to remember. I mean, this is 20 years ago almost. Or
Yeah.
if I took less good care of the birds or if I just was busy all the time cleaning bird cages and I just don't remember, which I don't know. That's such a mindless task. I don't know why you'd remember, but or like even last year. So like, I made a video about it months ago before this breeding season. I built those new holding cages above. So what did I do last year? I can't remember. I mean, I had smaller holding cages. I guess I just
Yeah,
cleaned them more. Because
I don't
mine,
know.
they're all full now. They're
Yeah.
all full now. So where were those birds last year? Maybe I left them in the big aviary longer. I don't know, but yeah. So right now I've got my big aviary, I've got my parrot flight, and then I've got eight smallish cages. Now,
Yep.
three of those are still 3 feet long by 2 feet. They're still big cages, but um, all these other cages that I really intended to be set up as only hospital cages or short term or quarantine.
Right.
I've got of those eight cages, one's empty right now, and the finches that Jacob's sending me are going in that cage, and so I'll be back
Nice.
up to. I'm running 10 cages right now, and I mean,
That's crazy, man.
the guy that came today, my friend Michael, he came to pick up a pair of canaries that he was buying, and I ended up giving him. He had a snake get into his aviary, unfortunately, which crazy picture. I guess I'll post it. I'll add it into this episode.
Nice.
Terrifying, but so it's like a big corn snake, I think it is, that
Uh-huh. Okay.
he walked out to the aviary and sitting in one of the dove nests is just a big corn snake with birds
Oh
in it.
man.
So he lost some birds there, and so now he's having to scramble to all that. But I was like, "Hey man, sorry you lost your some." So it ate four of his diamond doves. So
Oh my
I
gosh.
know it's a big snake. Like, how did it even get in? It couldn't get out. That's
Right,
why
I
it
was
was
gonna
still in the
say.
cage. Yeah, it couldn't
Yeah.
fit out. Um, and
It's because it's so
so
fat from eating all the birds.
right, so I gave him a pair of diamond doves, and
Nice.
I still have two pairs fully growing out, and the big aviary, that pair just hatched another two, and in the parrot flight where my other pair is, they're sitting on two eggs right now too, and they have a
Nice.
fledgling in there. So I still have I still have like 10 or 11 diamond doves. So it's like
Jeez, man.
they're just. Have you had any luck with yours yet?
You're cranking them out. No, the funny thing is the male, he's trying his heart out, and I feel like she's just not giving him the time of day. She just flies away. I think they have finally like selected a nest. I did put a few like canary nest pens throughout, and I've seen them sitting in one quite a bit. But I looked in there, I haven't had any eggs, so that the male, he's trying every chance he gets. But
She's a little on the young side, but we'll
yeah,
talk more. We'll talk more about that off camera. But I might have some stuff I can help you with. But um, it is one of those things where like once they get going, they are
hard to stop them.
machines. Yeah,
Yeah, I figured
it's
it'd
like
probably be the case. So
that's why they get to become pests down in like Argentina and stuff. Is you'd think they only have two babies at a time, but they have two babies every month, like
I was gonna
clockwork.
say, yeah, it's just
Yeah, I mean
that's
the
crazy.
basically, they fledge on like day 12. They fledge really fast, which that's part of it.
Which is
So they,
crazy because they're bigger birds, you know. It's like,
mhm.
I mean, they're not huge, but, canary
But
bigger than
they're,
canaries, and
yeah,
they
well,
develop quicker. It's just crazy.
yeah, I mean, they go from, like, I had one that definitely hatched today, and tomorrow it will be twice as big.
Yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, so they do that, but then, like, so they fledge on like day 12. So that's like incubation. So that's 25 days out from laying.
yeah,
And then on day like 27, egg one, day 28, egg two, and they're back at it. I mean, they don't stop. It's wild.
that's
Sucks to be a
crazy.
female diamond dove. You're busy.
That is crazy.
But dad's still feeding. He's either feeding the old chicks or sitting on the new chicks. It's like, man, you guys not no one's making them. It's not like I'm out there like, hey, lay another
Right,
egg. They're
right.
doing it, but they yeah.
Just going to town, nice and happy for you.
But yeah, the last 2 days I have basically spent my entire day in the 100+ degree heat redoing the roof on the aviary. I look great. I have lost all the water weight. I really, I was like, I'm like a wrestler making weight. I mean, I was pounding liquid IV today just to make my
Oh
dehydration
man,
headache go away.
that's nuts. Do you
Yeah.
think it's gonna work now? Just
Oh,
rerouting all the water?
we had a storm, and in the video I posted a short video yesterday or the day before.
Uh-huh.
It worked great. The only downside is I discovered, which I couldn't even find it before because I had so many drips in, the gutter system kind of down on the inside also had a leak. So today I filled that leak area, I filled it with expanding foam, and then I went to concrete on top of it. And I don't I think what I did wrong was I think I didn't let the foam finish expanding. So I tried to like build like a concrete kind of cocoon over it, and it concrete's all busted. I went and looked this afternoon. So
Gotcha.
my project for tomorrow or the next day will be to rip out the loose pieces of concrete and go back and make that pretty. But um, hopefully, knock on all the wood, certainly I've already definitely improved things.
Yeah.
I don't have roof leaks and I don't have stuff like dripping down the walls and onto nest anymore, which was the real problem. So I
Yeah.
was getting some nests were getting like mildewy and messy, and now that's fixed. The
Good.
question is, can I stop the bottom from overflowing too? So just like, yeah,
You
outdoor
get
bird keeping,
you get so
not
much
easy.
water, man. It's just crazy. I just can't fathom that much water coming down. Like we
Yeah.
get monsoons, we get a few random like killer storms that just come through and pound us, but it's few and far in between, It's not consistent
Yeah.
like you guys get.
I'm good for like a quarter to a half an inch of rain almost every afternoon in the summer.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Also, I have to mow my grass like twice a week.
Yeah, I've now that it's hot, we've gotten. I think we're pretty much officially in the hot season. We're mid 90s to 100 every day. Our grass just slows down like crazy. We're still watering,
Mhm.
but it's like that now I mow like once every other week because it doesn't die, but it doesn't grow. It just that heat slows
Yeah.
it down big time.
Not the case here. It just grows more because it's getting all the sunlight it could possibly want,
I was gonna say water
plus
every
all
evening.
the water it needs, right? So it's just
Uh,
like if you were going to be like a professional grass grower in Mobile, Alabama, come get it. You can have mine. But yeah,
uh,
so that's kind of a good segue, right? Of constantly working on the aviary. So today's
about to knock my
episode,
camera over.
yeah, if Chris doesn't go overboard on us.
I'm just
Um,
hanging out here.
Today's episode, we're going to talk about dream aviary setups. And I have a couple. And Chris, if you're anything like me, and I think you are, you think about the next
Oh man,
aviary a lot.
I already know what my next aviary is. I want. It's just you got to have the land and the space for it because I just keep wanting bigger and better, more money, right? But
Right.
um, I my wife catches me daydreaming all the time, or she'll go through. I have like a notebook I take to work, and every once in a while I get bored and I'm like drawing my next aviary, and it's got dimensions in there. She just laughs like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's my next aviary." She's like, "You have one. You don't need another one." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I definitely need another one."
We we desperately need to get our wives on this podcast. I got to talk to him about it. We'll have to pick like a day during a weekend during the day when we can get them on at a normal hour because I'm assuming yours is going to bed right now too.
Oh yeah, yep.
So yeah, it's late. It's after 10 p.m. where I am. So, but yeah, so
Definitely good thing. Yeah, man.
let's
Start us off.
talk
What do
about
you
it.
what do you think?
So
Give
I,
us some of your ideas that you
I've
got for your
got
dream
uh,
aviary.
yeah, I've got like three. The last one I think will require the most audience input, and I also think it's the most achievable in the short term. So I'll
Uh-huh.
talk about that one last, and we're going to kind of alternate here. But I'll start with my like, if I was the richest man on earth tomorrow, what my aviary would look like. Um, and So let's just start there. So I would want an extremely large space. So
Yeah.
I'm still going to go with, in this scenario, community aviary. But it's going to be massive. I mean, I'm talking about probably roughly the size of a football field, um, is
You
what I'm
definitely
talking
going
about.
big, man.
Yeah. And so there's a couple reasons for that. One, I don't want to have to clean it ever. So if it's that big, as long as I don't,
Yeah.
chalk it full of birds,
Right.
I think I could have like bugs and stuff in there. And it would basically what I'm going for, it's, maybe an airplane hangar is the right description because
There
I
you go.
want it to be its
Yeah.
own self contained ecosystem. So it's not an outdoor aviary, right? This would be an indoor aviary. So it'd be climate controlled. And ideally, it would like almost have its own weather. It wouldn't really like that NASA building that's so tall that it has
Right.
its own weather. It wouldn't be like that, but like I would have like misters in the ceiling, so I could like
Yep.
make it rain, or I could do foggy sometimes, and so I could
Yep.
affect the weather. And what I'd also like to do is kind of divvy up the regions inside of it. So I'd have like this is kind of the desert, this is the wetlands, this is the jungle, and I would probably have some things in there too that weren't the typical finches. Like in the jungle area, I'd love to have like poison dart frogs,
Heck
but
yeah.
not the ants that make them venomous. But just as like one
Right.
example, right?
Yep.
So like in the desert area, it would be cool to also have like some tortoises or something, that kind
Yep.
of thing.
Yep.
And um and so I'd have all those things, but the real reason I need that size is I'd like to be able to have like multiple pairs of birds that we view as aggressive that don't get along. So like
Yeah.
I'd like to have like multiple weavers, and I'd like to see like huge flock behavior. So like
Yeah.
my societies now, I have like 10 or 12 societies. I don't have to go back and count, and they flock together. But
Yeah.
how cool would it be to see 50,
That'd be awesome.
right? Or like if you had like 200 Gouldians and you have like a replica of their natural habitat in the Kimberley in Australia, and you see all the Gouldians flock down to the water and get a drink
Uh-huh.
at the same time.
Yep.
So that's just how I like. If I had unlimited money, I do nice things for other people. I do charity and all those things. But the thing I would do for me if I won the lottery tomorrow would be, and I'd have to have zookeepers.
Yep.
I'd have soft bills. I'd have all kinds of stuff, and there'd be fresh food stations. And I'd probably try to like almost grow some of the food. Like I'd try to have like fruit trees and
Mm-hmm.
seeding grasses in the grasslands area. So,
Yep.
but that's what I picture is basically like almost a planet Earth documentary in an aviary. I don't think there's one like that anywhere on Earth. I mean, I've seen a couple of
No.
really big ones, but the closest I've seen to that at the National Zoo in Washington D.C. They have a really cool circular aviary with like a river running through it, and the walkways
Uh-huh.
kind of going over the river. But it's still not. I mean,
Yeah.
I bet it's like 100 feet, 200 feet in diameter. I mean, it's cool, it's awesome,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about, this would be something that like, somebody really would come film a documentary in there, right? You'd be big
Yeah.
enough with a natural enough environment that you could see natural behavior in
Yep.
full, no holds barred.
Which
That
would
would be
be
amazing.
I I mean it's funny when, when we first were talking about, hey, let's do something aviary style, best aviaries. Like immediately those things came to my mind. And San Diego Zoo in California, they've got three. It's been a long time since I've been there. At least when I went there, they had three huge walk-in aviaries that are tiered. I mean, they're big enough. They've got full-grown, giant-sized trees in there, and then you go
Yeah.
up levels inside of the aviary, and they've got some
Oh,
pretty
that's
sweet looking.
sick.
It's really cool,
Yeah.
man. If you ever make it out to San Diego, you have to go to San Diego Zoo. Just for the bird piece, like it's awesome. And then we have here, we've got an aquarium place, and they have something similar to that, and it's their rainforest section. So they have, and they've done a really good job at it. Same thing, it's massive. You have two levels in there, full size trees, everything's real. Their focus is aquatics, right? Because it's an aquarium, so they have multiple different Amazon rivers and tanks throughout in between these trees. They've got turtles in there. They've got poison dart frogs.
Mhm.
And then they have a bunch of birds that fly free in there. They've got some toucans, several different types of tanagers that are, really beautiful. So those are what I think of like absolutely. I'd love those for dream aviary. I think for you, I mean, for me in a cold climate, my ideal would be inside, like a climate controlled, so I don't have to worry about, the cold winters that we have. But I also, man, I also love the outdoor aviaries too. Like, there's nothing better in the summertime than to just sit out in the evening outside and watch them. So I think for me, so I'm similar to you. I've got like about three different styles of aviaries that I've always dreamed of. My first one would be like the mixed aviary setting. Whether it's inside, climate controlled, or outside, I think of I wasn't thinking like a football field, maybe like half a football field. But same thing. I mean, not, I probably would just say ditto to what you said on that. The different sections, climate controls, like the planet aviaries, you can tailor it to the species and their climates. I would love to have like a stream going through or a pond that has fish and turtles in there. I really like the aquatics as well. I don't know if you ever follow like Blake's Exotic on his YouTube channel. He's down in Florida
I think I've seen his stuff, and he's got
and
like a big netted in one
yeah,
with like
yeah, he built like a big
taracos and stuff.
netted
Yeah,
aviary, and he's got some turacos and a couple other flying birds. He mostly focuses on like ducks and
he's got like
turtles, and he's
mandarin
got
ducks and stuff.
and
Yeah,
some really
yeah,
cool
I've
fish in
seen
there.
his.
But like he's got a sweet big walk-in aviary that kind of similar style or theme there. But yeah, if I could do that, I think for me, I want the big and the better. I think I would just have to. It either has to be big enough that it sustains itself, and like you said, cleaning is minimal, because it is so big that just nature takes its course. Um, and then as far as like the watering and feeding goes, like I would need some type of a watering system to where it's automatic, right? So you're not having
Mhm.
to go out and like take care of them in this ginormous area. It's easier to maintain. So I would probably have to be really smart and methodical about how to do the watering and the feeding, whether the watering is just from the stream that goes through the aviary and the pond, and that's that, it's got its own ecosystem there and takes care of itself, and you just, but so I think that would be something that I'd worry about. But yeah, I have similar ideas on that kind of mixed aviary type that you just discussed. That's absolutely my dream. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's how I picture it. Is like they just go down and drink from the stream, right? And I also, and maybe this is the first common challenge. I'd be really interested to see if the birds, and I think they would, is my guess, they would kind of self-select their natural climate. So,
Right.
like, if you have like a grassland bird, they'd kind of stick to the grasslands. If you have a jungle bird, they'd kind of go to the jungle,
Yep.
and because it'd be so big, you could have like I could have like a pair of eclectus in there, right? That are
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
in there with the finches, but it's so big that they just never, just like
Right.
in the wild, right? I mean, that would be freaking cool. And I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't like it as much because I wouldn't get, like, right now, like I know all my birds by sight.
Yeah.
I wonder if you wouldn't get that with a bigger one, but I probably just live in it. I'd probably have a little
Yeah.
tent in there and I'd live in it.
Yeah.
I'd probably get divorced over that aviary.
And
Now that I
you'd
think
have
about
to.
it.
I think it's I think that's where like the methodical piece comes into it. You'd have to strategically set up your feeding stations, and the lounge areas where you would sit and observe the birds throughout the aviary. You probably have multiple of those throughout. Uh, Technology would come in handy
Yeah,
where
cameras.
kit stick cameras out, so that you can just go back through and look at the feeds and just make sure, hey, I still have this bird. I just don't see it very much because it's great at camouflaging into its environment, things like that. And so, yeah, I think you'd have to be intentional about some of those things, just so that you could keep eyes on them and know what you've got going on.
Right. And in the scenario we described, right, there's unlimited money. So you could have like a big staff, you could have a ton of
Yeah.
camera, you could put out 500 nest boxes with 500 built-in cameras, right? You could do it. It would be cool. Jeff Bezos, if you're watching this, let's
Yeah.
talk.
Can you
Um,
sponsor us, please? Next year.
yeah, we will. This podcast will be brought to you by Amazon so fast. You can't, yeah, we'll take Walmart Plus, anybody,
Yeah, there you go. That
Um,
would be awesome.
yeah, okay. So dream number two. You go, Chris.
Okay,
This is your turn to go first here.
so I think we kind of covered the mixed aviary. I think for me, that there's two things that really drive me in this hobby, and it's the mixed aviary, so sitting, relaxing, enjoying
Mhm.
my birds, but then also there's a big piece in the breeding aspect that really drives me, and I take pride in that and wanting to selectively breed, preserve species in captivity, things like that, and continue great bloodlines and genetics. So my second, and I call it an aviary, but it's a oversized individual breeding cages is really what it
Mhm.
would be. And so I envision, and again, I'm in Utah, so I envision both an enclosed climate and an outdoor, but it would be a mix. So I'm looking at like a big, long, like almost like chicken coop run type building. I mean, it's really long. You would have your inside, you know, inside of the building, you'd have half of the cages inside, and then each of those runs would extend out. So you have this big long building down with a bunch of flights coming out, right?
That's
Um,
exactly where I would
and
go with this one too.
and I would, again, set up my watering and my feed systems inside that are automatic, trying to take down, the type of or the amount of attention and time that it takes to just do that aspect with that many cages. But I love, and these would be like big aviary sections, big flight sections, right? I'm thinking,
Mhm.
like 30 feet by 12 feet tall by 15 feet wide, big sections where I could put in multiple pairs of that species throughout. And I love, I've really loved enjoying breeding some of the grass parakeet species and the borks this last couple of years, which is, kind of extending out of the finches. Like I would love to have some variety there. Then you could put some aggressive species or some larger hookbills or things like that in those and kind of have some variety. I think that would be really fun. But that would kind of be my dream. I would want first, that big lounge mixed aviary setting where I can just throw some birds in there and just enjoy them. And then the next would be that huge building with just probably 20 flights coming out of it that I could specifically, specialize in what I want to breed there and have just options available. And I think, I think Tony Arnold has a
Yeah, so you're
similar,
just describing Tony Arnold's house, and I'm
exactly similar setup
forever
there, and
jealous.
I think that's awesome. When I was growing up, I had a guy. He still does birds here close by, so a good friend. He built a really big aviary and had that. He kind of did both of those in with each other. He kind of had like the indoor with the flights coming out, and then connected to that was his big community flight or aviary. So it's kind of like one big structure, but both
Mhm.
atmospheres or settings, or styles. And so that was really cool and something that I've always wanted to do and kind of specialize in that area. So what about
Yeah,
you,
that
Jay?
very similar idea of just like, yeah, I thought of it as horse stalls, but you're right. It may be like runs like for like a dog kennel. So you
Yeah.
just go down the one big hallway and you have,
Yep.
aviary one, aviary two, and so on. And then, yeah, my brother and I were actually talking about it today. It's like, what could you do to reduce the amount of maintenance time? And I was like, oh, the easiest thing. And I just basically can't afford it or can't figure out how to do it easier would be to have the water clean itself.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yep.
and Tony has this set up somewhat. I'm not sure exactly how his works, but in mine, I basically have like one, which you have to be careful for disease transmission too. So I don't know how you'd split this off or figure. I guess you could do it this way. You basically have one supply line to all of them,
Mm-hmm.
with like a nozzle aimed into each bowl, and then each bowl has like a time censored thing and then connects to a master drain, right? So like
Right.
every day at 10 o'clock and at 4 o'clock, everything drains, then the drains close, then a rinse gets sprayed in for 20 or 30 seconds, then that stops and they all drain again, and then drains close, and then it
Yeah.
fills it up, right? And everything's just automated on a timer, and that way, and there's some kind of alarm if it doesn't work right. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that way you never have to mess with water again. And you could probably set up food. I guess you couldn't do it with egg food, but you could set up the seed kind of in a similar
Uh-huh.
way where it just
Yeah.
disposes of the old stuff and dispenses the new stuff every day. Um, and yeah, I'd like to do that. I can't decide if I do. So let's say you had 10 rows. Would you do like 10 pairs of Gouldians, 10 pairs of shaft tails? Would I basically just have my aviary now times 10? Or would you have
Right.
like, this is the Gouldian flight, this is the shaft tail flight? And I guess you do a little
Yeah.
bit of both depending on the
Yeah.
species.
hmm Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's kind of and I would think, I think and that's where, similar to your large one where you'd have different climates, like that's where I feel like I could create all, any type of climate that I wanted to, desert, rainforest, etc., and
Mhm.
set it up for that. But yeah, it probably would be, I think I would try to specialize each flight into specific species, but you have some that you can easily mix, and my flights would be big enough that I would be okay mixing some of them, and then there'd be others where you probably would only have one pair in there just because they're so delicate or whatever it is, and just baby the crap out of them so you could at least get some babies. But so yeah, I think
Right.
that'd be a huge dream of mine, just walking down my building with
With
each
my egg food
each
cart
flight,
or
yep,
my
exactly,
insect
with your
cart,
egg food
right?
cart, and you just have bins, just swap out the old with the new bin, slide it in there, keep going down.
Yeah. Okay. So the third one. So this is an idea I've had for a long time, and I had it all the way back in college when I was working at the fish store and keeping birds. So at the time, I had in the same room. It was a really cool setup. Again, built my own bed. There's a theme there, and underneath my bed in college, I had a big aviary. Well, it wasn't big at the time to me, but
Yeah.
it was like 7 feet long, 3 feet deep, and 5 feet tall. And then next to it on the other side, and then so that was like one picture a square with posts, right? Bed on top. One side was that, and then I had a bench on the other side that was the storage underneath. So you could lift up the where you would sit, and that's where I kept all my supplies and stuff. And
Nice.
then next to that, I had my reef saltwater reef tank. So my idea was, what if I combined them? So the technical term is a vivarium, right? So it's like
hmm
part terrarium, part aquarium to combine. But and I remember talking with a guy that he was actually in school to be a marine biologist who worked at the fish store with me, which like good job for him. But um, there's some debate over whether the so bird poop is urea, and there was some debate over whether it would be um, it would mess up the balance of the fish tank. So I
Okay.
think I'd have to do I don't think I could do like salt water. I
Yeah.
think I'd have to do fresh water and then maybe find fish. So like drop in the comments if you're like, oh, this would definitely work or it definitely wouldn't work and why. Maybe I'd find like a carp or some kind of fish that could eat bird poop pretty well
Uh-huh. Yeah.
because that would be the biggest concern for me is like how do you keep the aquarium balanced? I don't
Yep.
think the bird
Uh-huh.
part would be hard. Um, but then there's also the concern of like baby birds if they fledge and they can't fly yet and they end up having they're in the drink, right? And then you just have a
Right.
bunch of dead birds in your aquarium. So the
Yep.
other version of this that I think I could do very soon, hypothetically, I could do it tomorrow if I wanted to, would be to have if you looked at it from the side, you would see that they were divided. But from the front, it wouldn't look like it.
Look
You
like they're
basically
split.
have an extra piece of glass one way or the other, and I guess it would make more sense. You'd have the fish up front with just empty space above them, or you could have mangroves or something coming out of the fish tank to make it kind of all blend.
Yeah.
and then you'd have a bird cage in the back, and it would look combined. The problem with that is, and I've kept a glass aviary before. The aviary I just talked about on the bed had glass, but the minute you get one speck of bird poop, which will happen
Yeah. Day one.
immediately, it it ruins that illusion, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you can't really do it, the other thing I thought about was just putting like a net, like a real, basically the same thing I use on the outside, putting like a bird proof thing over the fish, but then the birds are going to poop on that too. So how do you get
Yeah.
keep that clean? So it's I don't think it's impossible at all. I think I could figure it out, but I think there would be some trial and error. I think it could potentially look really cool.
That would look awesome. There's a guy on Instagram. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He basically built like, I mean, it's a greenhouse, and he's made this big rainforest theme, and he's got a river that goes throughout, and he's introduced like the poison frogs, and he's got a nice big tank with like arowanas and stuff like that in there, and he doesn't have any birds in there. I think he's more of like a reptiles and aquatics guy, but it it was really cool, and something that I would kind of envision similar to that. I would just add birds to it, but yeah, it's birds are they're messy. They like to ruin things. When you're thinking of like water and stuff like that, or keeping plants clean or glass clean, like they like to just poop on everything that's nice. So no, yeah, that would be sweet, man. That would be way cool. I'd love to have something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, so I don't have a fish tank at all right now, and I miss having a fish tank. And my wife fairly and wisely says, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah, yeah.
I'm waiting for one of my kids to be old enough to take care of a fish tank, and then we'll be back in business, baby. But that's the only way I could think of to scheme my way back into a fish tank in the
Yeah,
near future. Is like, oh, it's just a
yeah,
bird cage that happens to have fish. You'll never notice.
yep,
But I just think that would be really cool to have, like in the corner of like your office or something, or as a
that'd be,
dividing wall between like your kitchen
uh-huh,
and your living room or something.
that'd be
Be
way cool.
be pretty cool. Yeah. You got a third
You,
one?
Not really. I think mine are just different versions of what we've already talked about. Nothing new. As a kid, um, I had a dream, and then I've always wanted it before. Basically, like my house was like there was this giant dome cage over it, and it's like I had this dream. It's like I woke up and we in our kitchen we had this really big glass window you'd open up, and I opened it up, and the birds are like flying down in and like eating breakfast as I'm eating breakfast. It's like just look out and I'm just looking out in the backyard, and it's like you still have like your tramp and your swing set and all this stuff, and you just got these awesome birds just flying around. But I don't really have a third. I think I've seen several different designs of kind of what we've already talked about. I've seen like an octagon design where like the middle is like your inner space, and then all the cages come in and connect to that, right? And they go out. So I've seen something like that I thought was really cool. I love Man, I love all things animals, but like tortoises, turtles, fish, birds, like I love those. So if there was a way that I could figure out how to combine those to coexist in a way that just doesn't create a nightmare for you, I would love something like that. And like you said, I guess if it's unlimited and we have millions of dollars, I'd probably have some people,
Yeah,
some experts in some of those areas taking care of it. But
have
I
Robert
think it'd be
Irwin come in
awesome.
and consult.
That'd
Yeah.
be so cool. Yeah, so I don't really have a third. I think it's just different ideations, of those, and you know, trying to be creative, keep it entertaining, but useful and beneficial for the birds, but then also for us as well, as far as a maintenance standpoint goes, and you know, success, level of success that you could have of what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's just a mixed aviary to hang out and watch, or are you really trying to breed and take in some very difficult species for conservation purposes, and trying to breed them and create this amazing environment that could give you the potential to breed any species of bird, really, and have people coming to you for that. And, even just like wildlife experts of like, hey, we need help with this specific species that's endangered. Do you have some space? Can you throw it in there and be like, yeah, absolutely. I've got a 100-foot aviary that we can throw them in and it's all theirs, and we'll make it specific to that species and what they like. So I think that's always been like the dream of mine, is just being able to tailor the hobby to the breeds of birds, having a large variety of different types of species from finches all the way up to hookbills, and then somehow being creative and making that as easy to maintain as possible while still being a father of and working. I'm
Right,
putting in the realistic aspect into it also. So
right. Yeah, and
yeah.
there was a, I don't know if this is true or if this is a rumor, but supposedly there was a Middle Eastern royal. I want to say it was Qatar. There was, and I can't remember the name of any of it. I'll have to look all this up later again because it's been a year since I looked it up. But there was a really endangered species of parrot. I think there were only like 11 in captivity in the world, and I think it was extinct in the wild. And he
Hmm.
bought all 11 and was like breeding them just privately himself. And
Wow.
I don't know if he would even let anyone see him. I don't know. This may be
Yeah.
like a terrible story about like
Yeah.
bad ethics where he's like, these are, I'm the only one, but the idea of like, okay, I lived in Costa Rica for a while and we went to look at we went to this one cattle ranch where it was the last breeding ground for this very rare bird.
Uh-huh.
And there were only like 18 pairs left in the wild. And it's like
Jeez.
the idea that like you could be like, oh, 18 pairs. Okay. Round them all up. I'll build them this
Yeah.
massive
Uh-huh.
enclosure. And 3 years from now, we'll have 36 pairs. And 3 years from then, we'll have
Right.
160 pairs. And
Yeah.
and then we'll reintroduce them and I'll just save that species myself. And it'll just be like the
Yeah.
story of that bird is like millionaire Jay was like, yeah, no, I'll save those guys. That would be
What
really
you,
cool.
that's what they did with the Spix macaw, right? And
Yeah.
that I think it was down to almost single digits left. That none that they had seen in the wild for
And it might
like
have been the
several
Spix
decades.
that I'm talking about.
And yeah, and they're actually now to the point where they're releasing birds back into the wild, which is awesome. So I think that's something that's always been a dream of mine, like having that sanctuary available, that you have instances like that and people are coming to you being like, hey, like we need some help, we need your expertise, and we need your amazing facilities that you have. Can we bring you this species that there's only five left in the world, and put the weight of the world on your shoulders to save them? Like I would love something like that. I think that'd be kind of cool. But
Yeah, and in a way, I like to think that I'm doing like Goulding's is a great example, right? So there was at one point below 2,000. They're making a great comeback now. Um, and the people that are involved in that, if any of you are watching this, like, good on you, mate, because you're Australian.
yeah.
That makes sense for me to say to you. But um, I think uh, so. Like in the last, I don't know, 3 years, I've made 30 something Gouldians. I had some fledge as recently as today. So
Yeah.
like that's my little just one species where like doesn't sound like a lot, but like I I started with, I don't know, eight. Now I have almost 40.
Yeah.
I've distributed them out. I don't currently have 40, but I'm responsible for like
Right.
in my little world, like basically a tripling of that species.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we all could do that in aviculture, which is like right now, I don't have any red-billed firefinches because you and Alex have all my red-billed firefinches. And like I made a conscious decision that was like, I produced them. I've done
Yeah.
okay, but like y'all were both in a better position to do it for the short term.
Yeah.
So instead of me being like, I really love seeing red-billed firefinches every day, which I do, it makes more sense for me to be like, here, you guys take them,
Yeah.
breed them, send me back some future generations. Did the same thing with red cheek cordon blues. So
Yep.
I don't want to lose those in aviculture, and they're neither of those species is endangered in the wild, but they're not
Right.
being collected out of the wild, and I don't want more to be collected out of the wild. So
Yeah.
we've got to build up those populations in
Yep.
aviculture, or we'll lose them. Um,
Well, and that's similar success, similar story with me and the Amadinas this year, right? The um, I've I've kicked out to the perch now 17 babies in the last year and a half. And just I know again they're not endangered in the wild, but we have very low level of population in captivity here in the United
I've
States,
never seen one in person. Yeah, maybe
and
one time.
just trying to do our part, keep them alive. I've actually been in touch with several people throughout the U.S. that have them, and we've got some things in the making to swap bloodlines around, and we want to keep those fresh. I don't want to just hold on to these birds and inbreed them, right? I want to look out and whatever different types of bloodlines we have throughout the U.S. Let's start sending them around and keep the success going and getting parent raised birds on the perch, which is ultimate goal. And I think that's how we keep healthy levels in captivity, discourage wild birds from being captured and smuggled in, things like that. Because there's none the need for them, right? Because we're doing our part here with those that are already in captivity. So, yeah, I think it's just working with each other, doing that, and then hopefully down the road we'll be millionaires and have ginormous aviaries, and we can do that, on a level of times 10.
There you go. If you are watching this and you're saying I'm a millionaire and I don't have anything to do with my money, I could give it away. I'll gladly fall on that sword. And
We'll, yeah, we'll sponsor the crap out of you. You'll be a hero to all bird kind.
yeah, I will make you as famous as my tiny YouTube channel can make it
Yeah.
uh, happen.
Yep.
So, all right, Chris, I think that wraps up our little make believe sesh, but that is fun to think about and talk about.
Yeah,
What
for sure.
where can they find you if they want to see what you actually have going on right now, which
Yeah.
is
Yes.
cool in its own right.
Yeah. Reach out to me, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all things bird nerd. So just type in bird nerd and it'll have the blue macaw show up. And feel free to reach out to me, DM me, PM me. If you have a hard time getting a hold of me, reach out to Jay. He knows me very well. He can get you in touch with me also. But yeah, please reach out to me. I enjoy interacting and I felt like I've created quite a few like actual friends through the bird world community, and I really enjoy that and look forward to that. So please keep it up and reach out to me whenever you need. How about you, Jay? How can they reach you?
I am the underscore Javiary or just the Javiary on everything, and that's JAYVIARY, which I think I'm going to be the one releasing this one, so you'll see it on my channel. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, which is terrible, Reddit, and YouTube. So yeah, if you can find one of us, we'll help you find the other one. Um, and yeah, just to back up what Chris says, like I love talking about this. I'll get so many DMs and people still are saying, "Can't believe you actually replied," or "Thank you so much."
Yeah,
I'm sorry I'm bothering you. You're not bothering me.
no, not at
I
all.
I love talking about this. It is my absolute favorite thing besides like my actual children and
Yeah,
my beautiful wife. So if you're wondering, like, oh, is it going to bother Jay if I ask him this really basic question about what to feed my finches? No, I want to talk about that. I want you to be better at it so that we have more finches. So
yeah,
if you're on the fence, reach out, get in this comment section. I want to hear about dream aviaries. I want to hear about if my bird aviary aquarium vivarium combo can work. If you
yeah.
know about some of the science behind that, if
And
you are a major pet store brand and you're like, I want to build one of those to sell to people, let's talk.
yes,
Um,
and if you already have something similar to what we're describing, send us some pictures and videos. We'd
I
love
will
to
put you
highlight.
on this channel. Yeah.
Absolutely, we would highlight that because that's what we want to encourage, right? We want these natural environments as best as we can, right? We all have our limitations, and that's okay. But if you've got something that we're describing as our dream aviaries, please reach out to us, show us, send us pictures, videos. We'll bring you on the channel because we'd love to share those ideas with throughout the world. Because we have a worldwide audience here, and I think it would be pretty cool to share what you guys have and highlight that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got listeners on every continent except Antarctica. And if there's somebody down there that we don't know about, drop a comment. I want to hear about your
Yeah.
penguins. Yeah.
Love it.
All right. Well, we're glad to be back. We're hopefully going to get into a little bit more
Yes.
normal cadence. And
Find some balance in our crazy summer.
thanks for watching and listening. And we appreciate y'all.
See you guys.